We're going to talk about some newcomers for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I like them. I'm just not quite sure exactly how they fit in and what their impact will be. We'll discuss it here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir, buddy. It is your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast, and you can find us wherever you get your podcast, man. All you got to do is tap into that location, and we will be there whether you watch or listen to your favorite podcast. Make sure you tap in with us each and every day so you do not miss an episode of the show. That's right. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Gametime. That is correct, man. Gametime is the absolute truth. You need to get on over there and get you some tickets and download the Gametime app. Create an account and use the code Locked On NFL. $20 off your first purchase. All right, here's where we're gonna go today here on the show. We'll have a little fun with y'all, man. Because yesterday, what we discussed on the show that we're past OTAs and mini camp, and now today's show is about really taking a look at the roster. Okay, you gotta really take a look at the roster, and that's kind of what we've been doing. Not really kind of, that is exactly what we have been doing the last couple of shows here on Locked On Jaguars. We looked at three guys, and we expected them to be very important with big roles. Today we're going to look at three guys who on this team have different roles, or one of them is a position group. We'll start we're going to end up talking about thermostat guys that change the temperature of the room without really making a whole bunch of noise. Those are those new tight ends. They change the complexion and the temperature and the feel of what that is, and I'll tell you about that. Right in the middle, mood changers. This is different than the temperature now. This is the mood changes are like, it's about competition. It's about making things a little bit uncomfortable. We're going to hang there with Eric Murray because I haven't quite figured out by watching the mini camp. I'm not going to say he looked a little bit disconnected. There were times when he wasn't as vocal and he kind of stood to the side and he was observing. That might just be his way of winning. But I'll tell you what, that little interaction or lack of interaction that I noticed tells me about what the Jaguars have going on in their secondary. But we're going to start where a little means a lot. We're going to turn a little into a lot. That is the edge presence of both Emmanuel Ogbah and Dawuane Smoot. Dawuane Smoot. I'm going to tell you, man, y'all know we've been begging for them to get proven edge help. And I'm going to tell you why this is so important, but we're going to park this right here for a second. We knew they needed more edge. Even when Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen combined for 26 and a half sacks or 27 and a half sacks for a year, and they were the top sack getting duo for the league. Well, one of the things that they struggle with is pass rush. And you go, how can you struggle with pass rush when you got the best tandem in the league, numbers-wise, sacks-wise? Why are you struggling? Most teams would die for one double-digit pass rusher. Y'all had two, and you're sitting here saying that pass rush is a problem. Well, because beyond those two, pass rush was a problem. The Jaguars weren't even in the top 10 in sacks. I don't think they were in the top 10 in sacks the year both of those guys got double digits. If they were, they still were a team that needed more edge rush because people were saying it all throughout last year's offseason. And all they did was go draft a kid in the 7th round and put him out there and say, okay, we'll figure it out. Gone are the days when these backup positions are looked at as purely the farm system. The Jaguars in the past sometimes have been guilty of this. And I ain't saying nothing about nobody that I ain't never said to their face. Well, maybe I ain't said to Trent, but I wasn't in Trent's face all the time. But I damn sure told Dave, hey, look, man, look. Dave Caldwell heard this from me before. You ever run into him, you ask him. He'll laugh and say, yeah, that joker complained about everything I did. That's why people don't understand why we're friends and that we still get along. Talk to him a lot. But if I ran into him somewhere, we're going to sit down for about an hour and talk. You're going to ask me why I'm still saying bad things about him, and we'll joke about it. But it's like they had their starters, right? And then the Jaguars would almost treat it like, okay, we got a few guys behind those starters that are kind of like starters. But everybody else, you're in AAA or AA. Get yourself ready. Be the scout team. And I know somebody will tell me that's not true. I wasn't there, boots on the ground. I wasn't there. There's my song again. But no, I wasn't there. But I'm telling you what it felt like. I'm telling you, it always felt like guys that were player like 27, 28 and beyond were just there to just supplement, support, clipboard hold, get better, play special teams. It just always felt that way, right? Going out and getting Emmanuel Ogbah, a guy who is proven, who used to be somebody's frontline starter, who now understands where he is in his career. He's 6'4", 6'5", 265, a professional pass rusher, edge setter. You ain't asking him to be a superstar no more. You're not asking him to be a starter, all right? You're asking him to be a pro. Toby Keith, the late, great Toby Keith. I might not be as good as I once was, but I can be as good once or twice. I'll put twice in there as I ever was, right? And then Dawuane Smoot, you bring him back. This is the type of dude that you appreciate once he's gone. Dawuane Smoot never really, he was a third-round pick out of Illinois, never really turned into this great, great, great pass rusher. But what he has been for his entire career, and I don't know he's going to make the team, but what he has been for his entire career is super, super professional, dependable. He gets it. He understands. These are exactly the type of guys you bring in when you change a system and you have depth issues and you have guys at that position like Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen that you know they're your dudes, right? But there's something else that they need. They need the support from players who they're obviously better than at this point and probably going to have a better career, but they know those guys have been there. They understand the work. They understand the technique. And when one of those guys has a question or he turns, you got a wily old veteran there that's telling you or saying, nah, baby, try this. Maybe you can move here. And you see how you put that arm there. Make sure you get that long arm out and extend and disengage and do this and do that. And when you see this guy coming, they've been there and they have the trust and they have the respect of the guys in front of them. And you don't sacrifice them just sitting there, okay, they're going to learn. No, you want to do from day one, no matter what the system is, it's going to come out and say, nope, I know exactly where I need to be. And I know exactly what I need to be doing. I'm hoping that this is, and it's a different position with different roles. But what I am hoping this is maybe you don't have to be a superstar, but we need you to Kyle Van Noy behind our edge rushers. We need you to be a pro. A pro's pro. A guy who knows how to get in and out of practice the right way, takes care of his body. You've been around in the league for a while. You've maintained. You've also played at a high level. Now we need you to play at a high level. We just don't need to do it all the time. We need to do it when we need you, but we need you to also be there for these other guys. That is why I believe it might not seem like a lot. It might seem like a little, but that little turns into a lot when you're talking about what it is like to try to make a deep run with young players who have never been where you are trying to go. Maybe those guys haven't been there either, but they've been around long enough to understand what you don't need to do. And I think it helps. I think it helps when those guys need a blow. The starters need a blow. They're going to be able to put guys into the game that at the very least know exactly what they're doing and have made plays before, and they can still make them. We're going to talk about mood changers, guys that can benefit the team just from their presence and how they compete. We'll talk about that more here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Gametime. I know you've been watching that NBA action, man, and it ain't nothing like sitting courtside watching these dudes go for that title. I love that I can see my exact view before I buy my seats, and there's no surprises. And you buy your seats late for those games right before tip-off. There's usually great, great prices on all of them. With Game Time guarantee, your tickets are 100% authentic. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. We are moving and grooving, rocking and rolling here on Locked On Jaguars. Where's your team every day? I think everybody's out of town, man. Everybody was talking about they're going to get ready to go fishing and go hang out, and all the coaches were taking trips, and everybody's going to decompress and get away because when they come back here, it's going to be full throttle in training camp. And when they get here, they're going to have a whole bunch of mood changes in training camp. What are mood changes? Mood changes are dudes that have, here's my word, they have this intangible that their mere presence and being exactly who they are will allow this thing to start lifting. That's because they are competitive as they come. One of those guys is Eric Murray. Eric Murray is different than anybody I've seen here, demeanor-wise, and I watched him for 2 days. Talks to the players, interacts, daps up, but he really laser focuses on, you could tell he was the one dude that was out there that was really, all of them were learning in their own way. But when you watched him, you say, what is he doing? It looked like he's learning and paying attention. He wasn't doing a bunch of interacting. This one particular day I saw him, he would leave the group, go stand on his own and stand back and really look and try to figure out what's going on, right? And I didn't take that as a guy being confused. I didn't take that as a guy who had any kind of regrets. I didn't take that as a guy who looked like he was bored. I looked at it as a dude who was really trying to escape the noise and the enthusiasm and really zero in and focus on exactly what it is he's supposed to do. That's going to be your free safety. That's going to be the dude, even though I believe they're going to play a split safety, they're going to play halves, cover two. I do believe that it's not just about the physical ability. When it comes to that, it's the navigation system. If you go look throughout history and see some of the greatest free safety types that are ever played, a lot of them didn't have this freaky ability. That's why they got drafted where they got drafted, late first. And that means you got a lot of ability now, but I'm talking about you didn't see them get picked high. Even when in these days, teams have always showed you if a player is good enough, even if he's a safety, we'll draft him high. The late, great Sean Taylor was one. Derwin James was another. We've had throughout history where it didn't quite work out. Minkah Fitzpatrick went relatively high. And there's one, Jabril Peppers, maybe didn't work out so much, but LaRon Landry didn't work out. But if you're a special player, you'll get drafted really high. But most of the time, you can find guys, and I hate that term. I don't know why I keep saying it. But most of the time, guys will be available later in that first, second, third round that can really help you and become a real good free agent or not a free agent, but a draft pick that turns into something. Go look at all the All-Pros and ask all the All-Pros or Pro Bowlers at safety and look at what round they were drafted in. You'd be amazed at how spread out that is and how scheme specific it is for guys. I think Eric Murray is going to be that for the Jaguars. I don't think he was that all the way for Houston, even though I think he played well, but there are people in Houston that'll say, those safeties didn't really match up with those corners. Those corners, that kid out of Georgia and, of course, Derek Stingley, they played well. I don't know if they got the same thing out of the safety position. And Houston's in a little bit different situation because they had to go and make sure they got an offensive line that could help everything else. But they had great corners, great pass rushers, but for some reason, something was still missing. So people started pointing to the linebackers and then the guys playing in the center field on defense. So that doesn't mean he can't help us. Just because Darnell Savage got replaced by a better player in Green Bay doesn't mean that he's not going to be good for Jacksonville. Sometimes we confuse the business aspect of it when teams make decisions for their team. We confuse the business aspect of it with a player's value to his new team. That being said, why do I call them mood changers? Because I saw him doing something differently and I saw him moving in a different way. And it shows me that while bravado and hand clapping and all of that is cool. There's another way to do this. And the way that Eric Murray do it, the silent, quiet, stand, observe, learn, let the work speak for you. I like it. I like it a lot. I think the safeties need to be just like the wide receivers. We got different guys in the room. They look different. They act different, but they're going to get the same result. When I saw him on tape, I thought Eric Murray was a term I used, and I told Ron Miles this, and say, look like he plays with his feet on fire. Him and Jordan Lewis have a character trait that is exactly the same if you look at the tape. And what that is they're always near the ball. And when they get there, they're always reaching and poking and trying to do something to disrupt the pass catcher or the ball carrier. And I think that that's a trait that everybody saw as they fight, not up to 100. They fight up to 105. They fight through the whistle, not to the whistle. And they hustle that way. In the past, I believe the Jaguars had guys that meant good, but they were out of position, didn't understand what they were supposed to do. And a lot of times, those guys ended up looking bad because they were trying to make up for other people's mistakes. There are a lot of things that the safeties got blamed for. That was on the corners. It was on the coverage. It was on some linebackers that were letting guys run across their face free, confusing the eyes of the safety, causing the safety to lose discipline and do things that he didn't want to do. But the dude you see running in the frame is the guy that's back there chasing the guy. And the closest dude chasing the dude that's going to the end zone was always Andre Cisco, Dewey Wingard, Antonio Johnson, or Rayshawn Jenkins to a certain extent. And I'm not saying that they didn't deserve some criticism. But what I'm telling you is when you see the safeties like that, it could be something very, very small, as in just one misstep, just one bad turn of the hips. And it could be something also that has something to do with the scheme, like they're not giving them the answers and they have to make these decisions. Do y'all recall guys biting on stuff when a dude comes loose and then another guy run? You remember when Devin Lloyd, I think it was Devin Lloyd was supposed to be running with Njoku, the tight end from Cleveland. And then when he gets back there, they go, busted coverage. And they blame the DBs. A lot of people pointed out, well, they fought. He was supposed to run with him and he didn't. That's it. So you can argue and say, well, look, what kind of design of a defense is to have Devin Lloyd running with Njoku, who's a 4-4-4-5 guy? Well, that's another question. That's another question. But a lot of things, it's not. But what you will have is you will have a competitive side, but it's a quiet competitiveness of Eric Murray. And go watch his tape. Eric Murray is so discreet with the Jaguars. I went to pull a picture of him to put it on the thumbnail. And the only ones I saw, and even though he's taken 1,000 pictures probably for our uniform, the only ones I saw was in him in Houston. So I didn't use it. But that just goes to show how unassuming, how quiet he is. And nobody talked about him in free agency. But guess what? He's now here. And when you take a look at the tape, I think he can be really, really good when you mix him with the other things and the staff and scheme that they have. Let's do dudes that check the temperature. Not the mood, but the temperature. This is all about the tight end group. And I'm going to put them all in there together, all three new tight ends, the tight end group. And what they have in common is their presence tells Brenton Strange is your room, dog. And that's the most important thing. We'll discuss that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. The Jacksonville Jaguars' depth at tight end has changed. The Jacksonville Jaguars tight end room has changed and looks absolutely different than it did a year ago. Gone is a dude that caught over 100 balls not that long ago, and that is I just got distracted. Somebody just sent me something that made me laugh. I'm laughing while I'm not even laughing for y'all, but y'all forgive me. But gone is Evan Ingram, and he's a dude that was when it comes to the fan base, Evan's a nice guy. So this ain't about him. This is more like the fan base that we don't want Evan to leave, and we don't want Christian to leave, and you're getting rid of our productive players. They're also getting rid of players that make a whole bunch of money that wasn't available a whole bunch. And the thing that Evan Ingram used to do that used to drive me crazy had nothing to do with Evan Ingram. It had something to do with just what he was, and that was a move tight end. Unless you're Travis Kelce, and Kelce does block some, and he's 6'7". Unless you're that, I've never liked move tight ends. I'll just get a big wide receiver. Get a big receiver. Get a real wide receiver. You either get I always said move tight ends was like playing poker. You're telling people what you got in your hand. They know what you're going to do. If you think you're going to fool them and run the ball with Evan Ingram on the field, you're putting yourself at disadvantage because you can't block. And then the thing about Ingram, he's 6'2" and a piece. And when he used to go out on his route, sometimes he wasn't able. I ain't talking about jump balls. I'm talking about knocking the dude off of his square, being knocked off your line, trying to ole and run around coverage when you needed to be on the other shoulder. And that's how you're going to get open on the outside. You press the outside shoulder, or you make the guy turn his hips one way, and then you get leverage. You stack him, and you turn, right? Evan used to run around that stuff. Evan thought because he was fast, or faster than most people that were going to be guarding him, that he could get away with it. And he did statistically, but it didn't help the team. And that's where we're gonna focus on what actually helps the team. So the Jaguars have some new tight ends. Johnny Mundt, who came from Minnesota, Hunter Long, who came from the Rams, and Quentin Morris. I think they got Quentin Morris recently. The team that he played for last were the Bills. But they all have something in common. Most of them are complete tight end types. And even if they lean a little bit towards, he's not a devastating blocker, but they're still bigger than Evan Ingram. Johnny Mundt, who I heard Kevin O'Connell actually absolutely loved up in Minnesota. Johnny Mundt is 6'4", 245. And I remember Johnny Mundt catching some passes. His stats ain't all puffed up either and blown up, but they're good enough. Hunter Long was actually involved in the Jalen Ramsey to Miami trade. And he don't have a whole lot of stats either. But I think James Gladstone probably likes Hunter Long and probably likes some of his potential. He's been in the building with him. He understands what it is. And, of course, that would mean that Liam Cohen also would have some experience there with him. Look, the dude's caught 60 balls in – no, he caught 16 balls or 8 balls in his entire career. I was adding the total with the 1 and the 7. He's caught 8 balls his entire career. So he said, Wig, what is that? Yeah, he's 6'5", 243. And he probably plays special teams. All of this to be said, the thing about this is it ain't costing you a whole bunch of money to have all of these dudes on the team. This is going to be all about Brenton Strange. Let me give you Quentin Morris's numbers too, just in case y'all don't understand. Quentin Morris has 15 receptions in his entire career. So this is not necessarily about them as much as it represents they're there to run the offense, help install the offense, be available if you need it as a pass catcher, to be dual and be able to block, also to play some special teams. But this means Brenton Strange is the man here in Jacksonville who's going to be the two-way tight end. And I like it. The thing that they also take away is when you put one of them in the game, it doesn't necessarily tell you exactly what that play call is going to be. Unlike with Evan Ingram, you kind of knew what it was going to be, right? Or you knew what family that play call was going to be in. Their body types are different. They don't look like one-trick ponies. They had some dudes here last year, 6'1", 250. They had another dude who was walking around the beach in Australia. He's 6'8", 280, all of that stuff. They have football players now, smart guys that probably think exactly like the coaches. They see the game just like the coaches. They teach the game. They run precise routes. This is going to be a team that wants to throw the ball down the field. I think when they use the tight end, it's going to catch a lot of people by surprise. And when it does, that player needs to be where he's supposed to be. That player needs to be the type of guy that's always going to be dependable and available. He needs to be able to block. Everybody on this team is going to have to block. The dude that runs out there and picks the tee up off the ground after the kickoff is going to have to learn how to hit somebody. That's just the way it is. When you want to be a physical football team, you have to get physical people. The one thing I will tell you, and it's not the one thing because I tell y'all a lot of stuff, but I will say this about this regime. In my opinion, what they have done really, really well is line this whole locker room up with people who may have different skill sets, but they are like-minded. I think this is going to be a much smarter football team. I think this is going to be, let me show you why we do it, as opposed to say, just do it like I tell you and you're going to be successful. Let me explain it to you. Let me answer the questions for you so when the game starts, you can answer them for yourselves. You're not doing it based on memory. You're doing it based on the fact that you actually know what you're doing. All of that, in my opinion, is going to lead to the Jacksonville Jaguars having a better year. How much better? Don't know. Because this is a game of demonstrated performance where you actually have to go out and do it in order for it to count. But make no mistake about it, I believe the Jacksonville Jaguars are in a better situation now than they have been in a long time. Whether the record reflects it immediately or not, that's another question. I just think these dudes are going to be ready to go, look competent, and give the fans a reason to believe that they've arrived. Now, they're going to go out after this year, this whole thing. You got to think now, this ain't all about just 2025. But they're going to have another bite at the apple. So it's very important that you watch the type of people that they bring in and ask yourself, what do you expect from those guys? So I just gave you 3 newcomers today, 2 players and a player group that'll give you an idea of how different it is from the past. So maybe when you look at it in the future, you'll see it the way it's supposed to be seen. If you want to know about your team, whoever that is, hopefully it's the Jaguars, make sure you check out Locked On NFL Scouting with Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino, because they are the 2 smartest dudes I know when it comes to rosters. All of these players, they know every single one of them. Trust me, they scouted them, and they'll make you a smarter football fan. So make sure you tap into Locked On NFL Scouting and make it your second listen. See y'all tomorrow here on Locked On Jaguars.